Okay, the next president is going to be Jimmy Carter. The Carter presidency is from 1977 to 1981. It says Jimmy Carter, 1976, elected as an outsider who promised to end corruption and clean up Washington. Again, having, the controversies of LBJ, Nixon, Ford, Jimmy Carter promised to clean up Washington. Domestic policy, what he proposed here in the United States, it says the United States depended on imported oil, which prices continued to rise. Inflation was increased to 10%, interest rates rose to 20%, and unemployment remained high. So with Jimmy Carter, a lot of things did not change, they actually got worse. Action. What does he do? With the energy crisis, he creates the Department of Energy. Energy being oil, or anything natural gas, energy. Increase the oil in the nation's strategic petroleum reserve, right? Increase the reserve that we had in the United States. With stagflation, what he decided to do was to cut federal spending, what the United States spends, and did not decrease. It did not decrease until Reagan's presidency, which is our next president. Now, with the environment, he provided funds to clean up toxic dumps. Then there was the 3 Mile Island accident in 1979, developed stricter standards for the peaceful use of nuclear energy. There was this massive explosion in the United States, called 3 Mile Island, and concerns went up because of that. With diversity, more women and minorities in office. So this is the action that Jimmy Carter took when he was president. Foreign policy, overseas, right? He wanted to set a moral example. Right, he was a Christian man, and he wanted to set a moral example. The way we acted, if things weren't right, the United States would step in. Human rights became a priority. Condemned apartheid in South Africa. Apartheid is segregation between blacks and whites in South Africa. If you remember world geography, you remember apartheid. He pressured the Soviet Union to let Jews emigrate. Emigrate means when you go back to your home country. Right? And he cut aid to dictators. So this is what Jimmy Carter does with foreign policy. Now, the Panama Canal Treaty in 1977, he signed a treaty returning control of all the canal zone except for the canal itself. So all the area around the canal went back to Panama except for the canal, which is the part that really makes the most money. It wasn't going to be signed over until the end of the century, which we'll end up seeing that in Clinton's presidency. Okay. The Camp David Accords, 1977. Israel was established as the homeland for Jews after World War II. However, in Israel, you already have Palestinians or Arabs or Muslims that were forced to migrate, creating tensions. The Palestinians were there in Israel, and they were forced to move out into Egypt. So you're going to piss them off because now they have to make room for the Jews, because after World War II and the Holocaust, they had to create a safe place for them. And that is going to be in Israel. Egypt and Israel both fought a series of wars in the 1970s. That's the Camp David Accords. Okay? So Israel was created as a homeland for the Jews. They had to move out the Muslims that were already there. It's going to create tension between Egypt and Israel. In 1977, President Carter invited Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, right, that's the Muslim, and Begin, Prime Minister of Israel, to the presidential retreat at Camp David in Maryland. They had face-to-face negotiations and they reached an agreement. Israel would return the Sinai Peninsula, and Egypt offered peace. Okay, they offered peace, so they made a peace treaty. Both leaders were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. However, Sadat was assassinated by extremists. The Muslim extremists they assassinated their president. Okay. Now, the United States and Soviet relations. Carter continued the policy of detente with the Soviet Union in 1979. The Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. That was a temporary aid to detente. Now it gets another crisis. Right now, they invade. The United States has to intervene as well. They halted grain sales to the Soviet Union. We no longer gave them grain, which is what they used to make bread. We boycotted the 1980 Olympics in Moscow. Postponed ratification of the New Arms Control Agreement, which is SALT II. The Iranian Revolution. The Shah, or the ruler of Iran, was a U.S. ally or a friend, and he was a brutal dictator. He promised greater freedoms, but he failed. Demonstrations broke out and he fled out of the country. In 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini and other religious leaders took control of Iran. Okay, Ayatollah Khomeini. They resented America for helping the Shah, right, the guy that used to run Iran, for helping him and backing Israel. So Iran, or Ayatollah Khomeini and Iran, did not like the United States for that reason. So in 1979, the Shah entered the United States for medical treatment. Angry students seized the staff at the U.S. Embassy. They held them hostage for over a year, and an attempt to rescue hostages failed, which means that they killed them. The United States looked bad and eventually released the day Carter left office. Okay, so that is the Iran hostage crisis. If you have any questions, you let me know.